On a lonely planet far from the busy trade routes of the galaxy, silence ruled the land. The air was thin, the soil dry, and no one came here anymore. But deep under the sands, a secret had been sleeping for hundreds of years. It was not a mountain, nor a ruin, but a machine built by aliens long ago, and then abandoned like broken trash. The machine was huge, larger than any human ship ever made. Its frame was scarred, its armor cracked, and its glowing heart had gone dark. The aliens who built it had fought great wars, but when this machine failed, they left it behind without care. To them, it was useless, only a reminder of failure. But to humans, who found it many years later, it was something else entirely. The discovery began when a group of explorers landed on the planet. They were not soldiers, not great scientists, only curious travelers searching for minerals. When their scanners caught the outline of the wreck beneath the sand, they thought it was a buried city. But as they dug, metal appeared instead of stone. Metal so strong their tools could barely cut it. The news spread quickly, and soon ships came from Earth. Engineers, historians, and adventurers gathered around the wreck. They could not believe what they were seeing. The shape was alien, the design impossible for human hands to make. But the silence of the machine called out to them like a mystery begging to be solved. The machine's head was like a tower, with broken eyes that once glowed. Its arms were crushed under rock, but its chest held a giant crystal. Even broken, the crystal pulsed faintly, as if it remembered life. Some said it was a weapon, others believed it was a guardian. But nobody knew the truth, and that mystery pulled the humans deeper. Scientists set up camps around it, working day and night. Every piece of metal they touched hummed faintly, as if reacting to their presence. The older engineers laughed nervously, saying the machine was dead. But the younger ones whispered that maybe it was only sleeping. The thought of waking it filled them with both fear and excitement. Children in the colony called it the giant. They drew pictures of it in the sand, imagining it walking again. Soldiers stationed there grew protective, patrolling around the machine as if guarding a treasure. The machine slowly became more than just an object. It became a symbol of hope, mystery, and danger all at once. Every night, the scientists argued around fires. Should we leave it alone? Some said. What if the aliens return for it? But others shook their heads. Aliens abandoned it long ago. It is ours now. The debate never ended, but the work continued. Piece by piece, they cleaned the wreck, uncovering its hidden power. Then one evening, something strange happened. A young engineer placed his hand on the crystal in its chest. For a moment, nothing happened, but then the crystal glowed softly, and the ground shook under their feet. The machine gave a low hum, like the first breath of a sleeping giant. The humans froze in shock, fear gripping their hearts. But the young engineer smiled, his eyes wide with wonder. "It is not dead," he whispered. "It wants to wake up." The others could not believe it. For the first time in centuries, the alien machine was alive again. They did not know that far away, across the stars, others had felt that same pulse. The aliens who built it stirred from their long silence. They turned their eyes back to the forgotten planet. They had left the machine to die, but now it was alive again. And worse, it was in the hands of humans. For now, the humans celebrated. They believed they had brought a miracle back from the dead. They believed they had turned alien trash into human treasure. But deep in the darkness of space, fleets began to move. The true owners of the machine were coming, and they would do anything to take it back. The wreck no longer felt silent. The hum from the crystal echoed through the camp, making every human pause and stare. For generations, people had looked at the stars and dreamed of touching alien technology. Now here it was, under their hands, waiting to breathe again. Fear mixed with wonder, but curiosity pushed them forward. The young engineer, whose hand had awakened the faint glow, became the center of attention. His name was Daniel, a man not much older than 25, known for his stubborn ideas. Others had studied the machine for months, using scanners and tools. But Daniel had done something different. He had touched it with no fear, and the machine had answered. Scientists surrounded him with questions. What did you feel? They asked. Did it hurt? Did it speak to you? Daniel only shook his head. It felt warm, like it knew I was here, he said softly. That simple answer frightened some, but it inspired many others. From that night, work around the machine changed. Instead of treating it like a dead object, the humans treated it like a patient. They cleaned its broken frame carefully. They studied its shattered circuits with more respect. And slowly, they began to rebuild what was once lost. Human tools were crude compared to alien machines, but human creativity filled the gaps. When alien wires were broken, humans replaced them with their own designs. When power conduits were shattered, humans shaped new paths around them. Piece by piece, human hands began to heal alien wounds. The work was not easy. Every step forward came with danger. Sometimes sparks flew and explosions echoed through the camp. Sometimes the machine growled like a beast disturbed in its sleep. But no one gave up. For the first time, humanity was not simply copying alien technology. They were fusing their strength with it. Children of the colony watched with wide eyes. They cheered every time a new part of the machine lit up. Look, the arm is moving. They cried when the giant's fingers twitched. Look, the chest is glowing brighter. They shouted when the crystal pulsed again. Even the soldiers, hardened and cold, could not help but feel pride. This was not just science anymore. It was a bond between humanity and something far greater. At night, Daniel and his team argued endlessly. Some believed the machine had a mind of its own. Others believed it was only reacting to power and repairs. But when Daniel touched the crystal again and felt warmth, he whispered, "No, it knows us. It accepts us." Word of the living machine spread quickly beyond the planet. Videos and messages reached Earth, and people watched in awe. Crowds gathered in cities, staring at screens showing the broken alien giant coming back to life. Some called it a miracle. Some called it dangerous. But everyone agreed it changed everything. The leaders of Earth debated in secret rooms. Should we use it as a weapon, they asked, or should we protect it as a gift? The arguments grew hot, but no one dared to stop the work. For every day the machine grew stronger, and every day it seemed to grow closer to the humans repairing it. Daniel dreamed at night, and in those dreams he stood inside the giant. He saw flashes of stars, battles, and alien voices he could not understand. He woke sweating, but with a strange calmness, as if the machine was sharing its memories, as if it wanted him to know the pain of being abandoned. The older scientists warned him, "Be careful, you are becoming too close," they said, but Daniel only smiled. "It trusts me, and I trust it," he replied. He did not know that his words would one day shape the fate of humanity. Weeks passed, and then came the first true miracle. With a loud groan, the giant's head rose from the sand. Its eyes, though cracked, glowed faintly like dying stars reignited. The camp erupted in cheers, some crying, some falling to their knees. For the first time in centuries, the alien war machine was moving again. But as its eyes lit, hidden signals escaped into the void. Invisible waves carried across light years. And far away, the alien masters who had abandoned it felt the pulse. Their lost weapon had been awakened. And worst of all, it was not by them, but by humans. They looked at one another in fear and rage. How could fragile creatures bring life back to what we left for dead? They hissed. They have no right, no strength, no claim. But deep inside, they knew the truth. Humans had done what they themselves could not. And that truth terrified them more than anything. Back on the lonely planet, Daniel and his team celebrated. They believed they had turned ruins into hope. They believed the machine was theirs now. But the stars were watching. And soon, ships would come. Ships filled with those who wanted their weapon back. And they would not ask politely. The signal raced faster than light, slipping into the deep silence of space. It carried no words, no pictures, only a pulse a heartbeat that should never have returned. Alien fleets far away paused when their scanners caught the echo. Commanders leaned forward, their eyes wide, their voices sharp with fear. "The weapon is alive again," they whispered. Long ago, they had built the machine to end wars. It was not simply a weapon, but a symbol of their power. When it failed, they left it buried in shame. To them, it was broken, a mistake, a forgotten chapter in their history. But now, that chapter had been opened by human hands, and the shame turned into anger. In their council halls, the alien leaders gathered. Some demanded they send fleets at once. Others warned that rushing might make them look weak. But all agreed on one thing: the humans could not be allowed to keep it. "If they control it, our reign is threatened," one voice declared. "If they bond with it, we may never defeat them," another warned. Back on the lonely planet, humans had no idea of these whispers. For them, every day was filled with discovery. Daniel and his team continued their work. They replaced broken limbs with new joints. They reconnected energy lines with both alien circuits and human wires. The machine, once silent, now responded with hums and slow movements. It was like watching a giant slowly rise from a grave. The colony around it had grown. Traders brought food and tools. Soldiers brought protection. Even families began to settle nearby, believing they were witnessing history. At night, lights glowed across the camp as people watched the giant's chest pulse. Children sang songs about it, calling it the Guardian. To them, it was no longer alien. It was part of their story now. But Daniel felt uneasy. The dreams had grown stronger. Every night he saw flashes of alien wars, burning worlds, fleets clashing in endless space. He heard voices, sharp and commanding, ordering the machine to kill. Then he felt loneliness, the deep silence of being abandoned. And when he woke, the crystal always glowed faintly, as if the machine shared his pain. He told the others, but most laughed. "Dreams are dreams," they said. "You are only tired." Yet deep down, Daniel knew it was more. The machine was trying to speak. It was not just wires and circuits. It carried memory, and maybe even soul. Meanwhile, far beyond the stars, alien scouts moved quietly. Small ships slipped near human space, cloaked in shadows. They sent back reports. Humans were not only repairing the machine, they were bonding with it. "The weapon accepts them," one scout reported, his voice trembling. To the Alien Council, this was worse than war. It was humiliation. Their great weapon had chosen another species. So the decision was made. A fleet would move, not in secret, but with fire. They would come to the human colony, demand the weapon's return, and if humans refused, they would erase the planet itself. Their pride left no room for compromise. To them, humans were pests holding stolen treasure. But deep in their hearts, fear lingered. If the machine truly bonded with humans, perhaps it would no longer obey its creators. On the human colony, Daniel and the scientists prepared the machine for its first real test. They managed to power its core for a full hour. Its limbs shifted, its fingers curled, and its chest glowed like a second sun. The ground shook, alarms screamed, but the people cheered louder. The giant was alive, moving, awakening. Daniel placed his hand on the crystal once again. This time he felt not only warmth, but a faint voice. It was not words, only a feeling, trust. The humans celebrated through the night. They danced, they sang, they told stories of how humanity had turned alien ruin into new hope. They believed they had proven themselves to the stars. But above them, unseen in the black sky, alien eyes were already watching. Ships lingered in silence, their weapons waiting, and though the humans could not hear it, across the galaxy whispers grew louder. The age of human innocence was ending. The true test was about to begin. The giant was no longer just a machine. Day by day, it became part of the colony's life. Its shadow stretched across the camp as the sun rose. Its crystal glowed softly at night, like a beating heart that watched over them. What once was alien now felt strangely familiar. Daniel noticed the change most of all. Every time he touched the crystal, it pulsed stronger. It was as if the machine recognized him. He began to feel less like a mechanic and more like a partner. The others noticed too, whispering that the giant listened to him more than anyone else. The soldiers stationed near the wreck grew protective. They no longer guarded it as property, but as something sacred. Children ran around its feet, playing and laughing. They drew the giant on walls, in books, and in the sand. It had become a symbol, not just of discovery, but of unity. At night, families gathered near the glowing chest. They told stories of how the giant was once abandoned by cruel aliens, and how humans had given it a second chance. The people said the giant chose them because they never gave up. In those moments, the bond between machine and humanity deepened. The scientists continued their repairs with greater focus, but they also began to argue more fiercely. Some wanted to unlock its full power and test its weapons. Others wanted to study it carefully, step by step, and a small group whispered that maybe it should be left alone. Do not turn it into a tool for war, they warned. But the voices of pride and hope were louder. Daniel stood between these arguments. He believed the machine was not meant only for destruction. He believed it wanted something greater. When he touched the crystal, he felt not hunger for war, but longing for purpose. It was like a soul searching for a new home. And humans, with their courage and stubbornness, had given it one. Across the colony, people began to volunteer to help. Miners brought metals to replace broken armor. Engineers crafted human-made parts to strengthen alien joints. Even farmers contributed, saying the machine gave them hope for the future. Every hand, no matter how small, added something to the giant. And with every gift, the bond grew stronger. Then came the day of the first full awakening. The scientists channeled power from reactors into its chest. The ground shook as the giant rose slowly. Its head lifted. Its eyes glowed brighter than ever before. The people watched in silence, their hearts beating fast. Then, with a thunderous groan, the giant stood. It was incomplete, scarred but alive. And for the first time in history, it moved because humans had willed it. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tears rolled down faces. Soldiers raised their weapons in salute. Children shouted and clapped until their voices cracked. For them, this was more than science. It was proof that humanity could achieve the impossible. Even the stars seemed closer that night, shining brighter as if watching. But in the quiet after celebration, Daniel stood before the crystal once again. He felt its warmth spreading through his chest. This time he heard a clear thought, not words, but meaning. I am not alone, it whispered into his mind. Daniel gasped but did not pull away. He placed both hands on the crystal and whispered back, You are with us now. The bond between human and machine had crossed a line. It was no longer repair and response. It was trust. It was loyalty. It was family. Across the galaxy, alien fleets were already preparing. They had seen enough through hidden scouts. They knew the weapon no longer belonged to them. But the thought of it belonging to humans filled them with rage. We must take it back, they shouted. We cannot allow this bond to grow stronger. Yet, deep in their hearts, they feared it was already too late. For the machine they abandoned had chosen, and it had chosen humans. It did not care for alien pride or ancient orders. It cared for the hands that healed it, the voices that cheered for it, the hearts that trusted it. And for those bonds, it would fight. It would rise. It would stand with humanity against anything. But the humans did not yet know how soon that fight would come. For while they celebrated, while they dreamed of a bright future, the dark shapes of alien warships were already entering human space. Silent, vast, and merciless, the aliens were coming. And they would not ask, they would take. The alien demand. The day began like any other on the colony. The sun rose over the dusty horizon, shining against the half-repaired body of the giant. Children played near its feet, Soldiers patrolled the camp, and scientists prepared their tools. Daniel stood near the crystal chest, ready to begin another long day of repairs. But that morning the sky changed. Dark shapes appeared above the clouds. At first they looked like shadows of mountains, too massive to be real. Then engines roared, low and heavy, shaking the ground beneath the colony. Everyone froze, staring upward in silence. Alien ships had arrived. The fleet stretched across the sky, black and silver, their surfaces glowing with strange patterns. They moved with perfect formation, as if a single mind controlled them. The largest ship hovered above the colony, its shadow swallowing everything below. Speakers crackled with a deep alien voice. "Humans, you have something that belongs to us." Fear rippled through the crowd. Mothers held their children close. Soldiers gripped their weapons. The scientists looked at one another, their faces pale. Daniel stood frozen, his heart racing. The aliens had finally come to reclaim their abandoned machine. The voice continued. "You will surrender the construct at once," it ordered. "It is not yours. It is ours, built by our hands, bound to our will." The words rolled like thunder, carrying arrogance and anger. To the aliens, the humans were thieves playing with fire. The colony leader, an older woman named Captain Reyes, stepped forward. She raised her voice so all could hear. "This machine was left to die. You abandoned it," she shouted. "We found it. We restored it. We gave it life again." Her words were strong, but the alien reply was colder. "You misunderstand your place," the voice said. "You are fragile creatures, not worthy to command what you do not understand. If you refuse, we will erase you, and we will take what is ours." The threat hung heavy in the air, pressing down on every heart. But the humans did not bow. Daniel felt the crystal pulse beneath his hand. The giant stirred, its chest glowing brighter as if it sensed the danger. He looked up at the massive alien ships and then back at the people around him. He knew surrender was impossible. Because the machine was no longer theirs, it was humanity's. The soldiers lined up, weapons raised though they knew they were outmatched. The scientists stood beside them, some trembling, but none running. Even the children clung to their parents and whispered, "The Guardian will protect us." The colony stood united, small and fragile, yet unbroken. The alien fleet waited for an answer. Captain Reyes shouted back, her voice steady. "We will not surrender," she declared. "This machine belongs to no one who abandoned it. It belongs to those who saved it." The crowd erupted in cheers, their fear replaced with defiance. For a moment, silence filled the skies. Then the alien voice returned, sharper, filled with rage. "Then you have chosen death," it hissed. The ships above began to move, weapons glowing with deadly light. The invasion was about to begin. Daniel pressed his hand firmly against the crystal. The giant roared to life, its eyes blazing, its limbs moving with thunderous force. The ground shook as it stood tall, facing the alien fleet. The people cheered wildly, tears streaming down their faces. The machine was not just alive, it was ready to fight. Inside the alien flagship, commanders stared at their screens. They had expected fear, surrender, weakness. But instead they saw humans standing firm. They saw the machine they abandoned, rising in defense of its new people. And for the first time, they felt doubt. The colony braced for war. The soldiers aimed their weapons, though they looked like toys against the alien fleet. The scientists prepared emergency systems, ready to protect civilians. Families took shelter, whispering prayers and promises. Everyone's eyes turned to the giant, their guardian, their last hope. The aliens had come to demand, but humanity had chosen to resist. The first shots had not yet been fired, yet the line was drawn, and there was no turning back. The first shot came like a falling star. A beam of light burst from the alien flagship, striking the ground just beyond the colony. The earth split apart, fire rising high into the sky. The message was clear. The aliens would show no mercy. The humans had chosen war, and now the war had begun. Soldiers scrambled into position, shouting orders across the camp. Families rushed into bunkers, holding their children tight. Scientists abandoned their tools and ran toward emergency shelters. But at the center of it all, the giant stood tall, its crystal chest burning bright. Its eyes glowed like suns, and the ground shook with each step it took. Daniel pressed his hand to the crystal, feeling its power surge into him. The machine responded instantly, raising its arm toward the sky. A shield of energy burst forth, blocking a second alien strike. The colony gasped in awe, cheering even as dust and fire swirled around them. The Guardian was fighting for them. Alien ships rained fire from above, their weapons slicing the air with deadly light. The giant moved with surprising speed, blocking blasts with its arms. Its fists struck out, hurling bursts of energy that cracked the sky itself. One alien cruiser exploded in a ball of fire, pieces scattering like burning stars. The people below screamed with joy. The fight was not hopeless, but the aliens were endless. Dozens of ships circled the colony, firing from every angle. The giant staggered as multiple blasts struck its armor. Sparks and smoke poured from its damaged plates. Yet it refused to fall, and each strike only made its glow brighter. Daniel felt every hit through the bond. Pain surged into his chest, making him gasp for breath. But he held firm, whispering to the machine, "Stand with us." And the machine answered, roaring as its arms tore another ship from the sky. Together they fought, human and alien machine, no longer separate. On the ground, soldiers opened fire, their weapons tiny against the massive fleet. Still, their courage burned bright. Every shot they fired, every cry of defiance, gave strength to the bond. The giant grew fiercer with their unity, its power fueled by the will of its people. It was no longer fighting alone. It was fighting as the heart of humanity. The aliens inside their ships watched in disbelief. "This is impossible," they cried. "It should not obey them." "It is ours, it was built by us," they shouted. But deep inside, they knew the truth. The machine no longer belonged to them. Then came the moment that changed everything. The flagship aimed its main cannon directly at the colony, a beam powerful enough to turn the entire planet to ash charged with deadly light. Panic spread through the humans as the sky glowed with death. Daniel closed his eyes, pressing both hands to the crystal. He whispered with all his strength, "Protect them, protect us all." The giant roared louder than thunder, its chest exploding with brilliant energy. It raised both arms, forming a barrier of light across the sky. The alien cannon fired, a beam tearing through the heavens. The barrier shook, cracked, and nearly shattered. Daniel screamed as the power surged through him. But the people below shouted, their voices joining as one. "Stand, Guardian, stand." Their cries filled the air, pouring strength into the bond. The barrier held. The alien beam broke apart, scattering harmlessly into the clouds. Silence fell for a single moment. Then the colony erupted in cheers louder than the cannon itself. They had survived, they had endured, but the battle was not over. The aliens regrouped, their fleets tightening around the planet. They were furious, humiliated, desperate to crush the humans. And though the Guardian stood tall, its armor cracked and smoking, Daniel knew this was only the beginning of the war. Yet as he looked at the faces around him, soldiers, scientists, families, children, he felt no fear. The bond was unbreakable. Humanity was united, stronger than ever before. And with their Guardian, they would not fall. Not now, not ever. The great clash had begun. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time in history, the humans were not the weak ones. They were the fighters, the dreamers, the survivors. And they had a giant to prove it. The battlefield was covered in smoke and fire. Alien ships burned in the sky like falling stars, crashing into the distant desert. The Guardian stood tall in the middle of the colony, its chest crystal glowing faint but steady. Its armor was cracked, its arms dented, yet its presence filled the humans with courage. They were still alive, but the war was not yet over. The alien fleet regrouped beyond the clouds. Their commanders argued among themselves, their pride broken by what they had witnessed. The weapon they had abandoned had stood against them. Worse, it had chosen to stand with humans. The shame was unbearable. One commander shouted, "We must destroy the colony entirely, leave nothing behind." Another hissed, "No, if we kill the humans, we may also destroy the construct." The Council of War was divided, but one truth remained. The Guardian was no longer theirs, and if they wanted it, they would have to fight to the last ship. On the ground, Captain Reyes gathered the people. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of the moment. "We have survived this far, but the aliens will not stop," she said. "They will return, and when they do, we must decide, fight to the end, or give them what they demand." The crowd murmured, torn between fear and hope. Daniel stood before the Guardian, his hand resting on the crystal. He felt the machine's energy flowing weakly, tired but unbroken. And then he felt the same voice again, not in words, but in meaning. "Choice," it whispered. Daniel understood. The Guardian was waiting for humanity's answer. The scientists argued fiercely. "Perhaps we should surrender. Perhaps we cannot withstand another attack," they said. But the soldiers shook their heads. "If we surrender, they will enslave us. They will take everything," they warned. The colony was divided, yet all eyes turned to Daniel. He had been the first to touch the crystal. He had been the one it trusted. Now, in this moment, he was the one who had to decide. Daniel closed his eyes, remembering the dreams, the battles, the bond. He thought of the children who called it the Guardian. He thought of the families who believed it was part of them. And he knew there was no choice at all. He placed both hands on the crystal and spoke with a firm voice. "This machine is not theirs, is not even mine," he said. "It belongs to us, all of us, to humanity, and it will never go back to those who abandoned it." The crystal blazed brighter, filling the camp with light. The Guardian straightened its back, as if agreeing. The crowd erupted in cheers, their fear burning away. Even Captain Reyes smiled, though tears glistened in her eyes. The decision was made. They would not bow, they would not break. They would stand with their Guardian, no matter the cost. Above, the alien fleet prepared for one last strike. But something unexpected happened. The Guardian raised its arms, sending a surge of energy into the sky. It was not an attack, but a message, a warning that spread across the stars. The pulse carried far, touching distant systems. Other species, long oppressed by the same aliens, felt it. They whispered of humans, fragile yet unyielding. They whispered of a machine that chose them. And for the first time, the galaxy trembled, not at the aliens, but at humanity. The alien fleet hesitated, their pride demanding war, but their fear urging retreat. They fired a few last shots, only to see them blocked by the Guardian's shield. Their commanders cursed, furious, but they knew the truth. This battle was lost. The fleet pulled back into the void, vanishing into the darkness of space. The colony erupted in celebration. People hugged, cried, and sang. Children danced around the Guardian, shouting, "It chose us! It chose us!" Soldiers lowered their weapons, exhausted but proud, and Daniel fell to his knees before the glowing crystal, whispering, "Thank you." But the Guardian was not finished. Its crystal pulsed one last time, sending Daniel a vision of the future. He saw larger fleets, darker enemies, wars yet to come. The battle today was only the beginning. The real war was still ahead. Daniel rose, his voice steady. "They will return," he said, "and when they do, we will be ready." The people nodded, their hearts filled with determination, for they were no longer just survivors. They were guardians themselves. The machine that had once been abandoned was now reborn, not as a weapon of aliens, but as the heart of humanity. And together, they would face whatever came next. For the first time in history, humans were not alone. They had a guardian, and it would never abandon them.